Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cinema Regulars. As you know, it is the end of 2023, and we already looked through both of our top 10 movies, and now we are going to be looking at both of our bottom 10 movies, the 10 worst movies that we have seen in theaters this year. In case you need a reminder, we'll throw up the rules for the rankings up here on the screen if you'd like to pause and take a look at those, just so you're clear on how this works. And really, without any further ado, let's start talking about this mess. Number 10, Wonka. Now, this one only just barely squeezed its way into the bottom 10. In fact, if it wasn't for Isaac not coming to see one movie with me, this movie wouldn't even be on the list at all. Overall, I thought Wonka was a soulless, directionless, and pointless rehash of the other two movies. It didn't really fit in. It was supposed to be a prequel to the Gene Wilder one, but it didn't fit in even with the lore and plotline of the Gene Wilder movie. Like, there was continuity errors, it didn't make sense, it didn't match up, but it was very unclear what they were trying to do with this. And just all around, it failed to live up to the other movies. There was not a single, scratch that, there was only a single decent joke in this movie. Everything else was just bad and cringe. And yeah, we went to see this movie purposely because we knew how bad it was going to be, but I didn't think it was going to be that bad. Number 9, we have Dumb Money. Now, unfortunately, I have to put this movie on the list because from casting alone, Isaac and I are both big fans of Paul Dano. We like a lot of the things that he's done, a lot of the movies he's in. But more importantly, this movie had just poor directional choices, poor music choices, especially. And I walked out of the theater just thinking, man, that is the most annoying way to tell a true story. I just felt that this movie, this was a real serious thing and an actual problem that really happened. And they didn't take it seriously at all. They made this real thing that happened into a comedy, which I'm struggling to understand why they would do that. I mean, I suppose to get people to see it, but most people who would be going to see this didn't happen that long ago. It was like they lived through this. They were mostly aware of what happened. They could have absolutely dramatized this way more than they did, but instead they went the comedy route, and even then it didn't really work out well for them. Again, as I said in the podcast, the only props I can give to this is that they actually understood memes. Because in every single movie, whenever it's like, oh, I got memed, oh, they turned me into a meme, all they do is just make them into a gif with rainbows coming out of their mouth. And I'm like, that's that's not what it is. Like, that kind of thing hasn't been done since like 2008. But I assume the only reason that they used real memes was because they took them directly from the subreddit. But um, other than that, yeah, this movie was just like really disappointing because they could have done something really cool with it, but they chose not to. Number 8, Knights of the Zodiac. Now, I don't have to be the one to tell you that anytime they have an anime adaptation into live action, it does not work out well. Now, don't get me wrong, I was not aware of the Knights of the Zodiac anime, nor did I watch it or even go back afterwards to see if the movie held up. I had no interest. I did not know anything about this. All I saw was the trailer, and then I saw it was in theaters, and we had time to squeeze it in. So I said, "Hey, why not?" And that's it. Was all downhill from there. The half-baked characters, the half-baked plot, all of it was just very boring all around. Like budget clearly wasn't there. The special effects clearly weren't there, and you're even as an audience member trying to understand this film, you were not there. I don't think, unlike with Dumb Money, I don't think there was a way to make this movie better. Number seven. I'm gonna catch a lot of flack for this, but Barbie. Uh, Now clearly I am not the target audience. Not because I'm a guy and Barbies are for girls, but because I'm a guy and they did nothing but shit on guys the whole movie. It's like the other year when they released that movie Bros and they called straight people terrorists and then got mad that none of the straight people wanted to see the movie. You can't shit on a certain demographic and then expect them to enjoy the movie anyways. I do have to get the reason this wasn't lower on my list is because it was actually, professionally done. Like I have to give props to like, the props, the background, the set design, the hair and makeup and costume departments. Production wise, it was very well done. But they just rode that message of the patriarchy and man bad the whole movie, and clearly that is not something that I as a man will enjoy. But I said this to Isaac numerous times. If they had gone the route where all it was I'm assuming you've seen it by this point, or at least aware of what the plot is. But if they had gone the route of just Barbie going to real world, meeting the mother and daughter who are having mother and daughter issues, and then the three of them together become closer, and the mother understands the daughter, daughter understands the mother, and Barbie helped along the way. It would have been just like a nice, sweet mother and daughter movie without any political stuff pointlessly shoved in there instead of that being the whole plot. But if that were the case, it was just a nice, sweet, innocent mother and daughter movie. Like even I would have enjoyed it to some point. Like even I would just be like, yes, I will accept that was a good movie. I Plot was there, characters were there. But really, if it wasn't for the set design and all like the production quality, good job to everyone who did that. And Ryan Gosling as Ken was pretty much the only enjoyable character. Everyone else was just a bore and a drag to see on screen. Number six, Marlowe. This movie is actually nothing. I believe Isaac actually fell asleep as it was starting. Now, to be fair, it was during a long day of movies, but we had like two more movies after this. This was directly in the middle of our movie day. And Isaac didn't fall asleep during the other two, so I don't think that that's what the problem was. But yeah, this movie was like nothing. Like the plot was like they just sauntered through it. Characters were kind of there. Uh, I was like seeing Liam Neeson because of the Taken movies. He was Qui-Gon Jinn. Uh, like when he does stuff right, he does stuff right. I even enjoyed Retribution earlier last year, but Marlowe, it was just so drab and unexciting, uneventful, and really not worth the time. Um, I don't even have. I'm just gonna go into the next one because I really don't. There's nothing about the movie to say really. It was just boring, dull, and just nothing overall. Number 5, Exorcist Believer. Oh man, was this a big, huge, stinky mess. All they did was they bought the Exorcist franchise name, brought back characters from the original, and then messed up the current plot again. Because that's what they do with horror movies, because that's the only thing left to do with horror movies. So this is expected to be in the same continuity as the original Exorcist, but the reason that exorcisms work is because of, the religious aspect. The power of Christ compels you, so it works based on the power of Christ. But also, this movie completely throws that out the window because it's 2023, and why wouldn't you? But then they just shoehorn, like, oh, it's going to take all the gods of all religions working together to cure these girls of this demon, and that on principle alone doesn't make any sense. So they kind of screwed themselves on that. And I'm sure Isaac's going to go in a lot deeper talking about the feet. Uh, Isaac loves talking about the feet in this movie for some reason, even though they were very prominent. I was immediately disgusted when they had this like bizarre like voodoo ritual, whatever, and then within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you have this woman swashing water around in her mouth and then spitting it onto this woman's feet. I'm like, what? Gross. Who wants to see this? Nobody. And it feels to me from everyone else that they are very much in agreement that this movie was a train wreck and a disaster. The dying breath of a dying property. Leave the Exorcist demon possession movies to Nefarious and just let this die. Because this Exorcist Believer was meant to be the first movie in a new trilogy, and I laugh at that concept. Number 4, The Little Mermaid. Now, despite the obvious controversy, which I've voiced my opinion on several times, probably not on the podcast, so I'll run through it really quick. I don't care about race swapping unless it directly affects the recognizability of the character. Nick Fury, for example, nobody cared about him really at all in the comics. And then Samuel L. Jackson came along and breathed new life into the character, and he was cool again. But that was not the point. Everyone knew Nick Fury because of his eye patch, not because he was white. On the other hand, the defining characteristic of Ariel, the Little Mermaid, is the red hair and the white skin, because that's what Ariel looks like. Otherwise, if it's any other combination of skin color and hair color, it's just some mermaid. Like, you could have took a picture of Halle Bailey as Little Mermaid and told me it was from their rebooting H2O, and I would have been like, oh, why? But I would not have guessed that that's who that is by looking at it. Again, pointless. Don't see the reason why to do that. But that's not the reason why it's so low on the list. It was a pointless rehash of a Disney property, which they excel at, which they love to do, and it never makes them any money. The CGI in this was absolutely horrible. I think the graphics on Subnautica looked way better than all of the CGI under the sea in Little Mermaid. All the songs were just terrible. They were either worse covers of the original songs, or they were brand new songs that were absolutely terrible and just completely unnecessary at all. Case in point, the one of probably the worst part of this movie is Aquafina, which you should know by now that Isaac and I do not like her. Aquafina gets her own song as Scuttle, who's a girl now for some reason, because they really wanted Aquafina in this movie because she can't sing, and then they gave her her own song, and made it the worst thing ever to be written or sang. This was painful to sit through, and Isaac and I actually had to. Isaac and I, two grown men in their 20s, had to go home and watch the original to just purge that bad taste out of our mouth. Number 3, Vindicta. I don't even know where to start on this. This was just all over the place. The themes were unclear, they were spotty. There was like Roman theme, there was Greek theme, there was medieval theme. I don't know what they were trying to do. The theme was old, maybe old civilizations, I guess, because he was wearing a mask of Michelangelo's David, but using weapons stolen from a medieval torture museum, and then quoting Greek or Latin or something. And I don't see what the point of this movie was, because there really wasn't any. It was super, super, super generic, to the point where I can't even say for sure if there was a theme. It didn't have anything about it that stuck out. This would be something that you'd find on Tubi for free rather than in the theaters paying for it. It was struggling to form a plot, and this twist that they had going for the secret bad guy was not a twist at all, because immediately in the movie they show you the guy's face and why he's killing people, and so you're really not confused on it at all, but they're acting like it's a mystery as to why this guy's doing it or what's going on. And it was just a really painful movie to sit through, and then it just ended like a wet paper towel just plopped onto the floor, like this was just plopped out in the theaters. um yeah, I knew just from the cast that this wasn't going to be great. Nothing against Sean Astin, it's the main lead I'm talking about, and you'll see why in a couple of minutes. But yeah, this movie was just nothing but just like a confusing, messy pile of just a bunch of things that they were trying to just, mush together to try and form a movie, but it didn't work at all. Number 2, Mafia Mama. Now, let me stop you right there. We knew this was going to be bad just from the trailer alone. This was one of these things where we were just like, let's go just to see how bad it is. And you'll hear that again before this video's over, and you'll probably hear it a lot during Isaac's bottom 10 as well. But the thing is, there are an equal amount of times where we'll see, let's just go see it just to see it, and then actually saying, hey, that was a decent movie after the fact. But when it comes to this and the number 1 on the list, foreshadowing there, Isaac and I did not say let's go see it just because, or let's go see it to see how bad it is. We went to go see it because we said we have to have something at the bottom of the list. We knew how bad it was going to be from the get-go. And Mafia Mama is an unfunny and cringy 2 hours, I believe it was. This was actually one of the movies that we unfortunately brought my brother Merrick along to, and he almost walked out of the theater. Every time we bring up Mafia Mama around Merrick, he does not forget to mention that he almost walked out of it. And the reason he didn't was, I said there's only like 20 25 minutes left. Just sit down. We'll see how this train wreck ends. Uh, and we'll just get out of here." And he's like, "Oh, fine." But the acting was bad. The writing and plot was schlocky. And it was just a massive yawn, a huge eye roll at every single joke and plot point they tried to do. It was just really, really not worth the time. I'm only sad that we saw this so long ago that I cannot accurately remember all the things I hated about it, but but at the same time, I don't feel like rewatching it and reliving that pain just so I can have an accurate representation of my feelings once again. But I know I tried to scrub it from my brain, but what little I still remember from it, it was a hazard to sit through, which really sucks because I actually don't mind the main actress in this because she was also the mom in Hereditary, and she was the mom in The Way Way Back. Both movies I thought were really good. But this was not her best. I hope she got paid for this movie because that would be the best thing to come out of it. And of course, before we get into the number one worst movie that we've seen this year, some honorable mentions. First one is going to be Children of the Corn by that monster Kurt Wimmer. If you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend you watch our viewing displeasure, where I gave a full drunken recap of the entire movie and then edited it all together. It was super funny, in my opinion. Even I, after making it and recapping it myself, I still go back and watch it because I enjoy it myself. But this was just, it was so far deviated from the plot of all the other Children of the Corn movies. Not that I watched all 16 of them, but I watched the first one, and it's so far deviated from that it's hard to even call it the same movie. And it was just absurdly silly. Like, it wasn't even that it was bad. It was bad, but it was like laughably bad. My brother and I, Merrick, we were literally in this theater laughing at it the whole time, and it's not even a comedy. And the main girl in this movie, as I mentioned, is the main girl in Vindicta. So just the double upping on bad movies this year. Also, she was in a Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. We didn't see that because obvious, but if that was also just as bad, I think she might just be cursed. Another dishonorable mention. I'm gonna have to put, not that it was anywhere near the bottom 10, but just like throwing shade to the side of Dream Scenario. I expect better from Nicolas Cage, and I expect better from A24 because they put out some very outstanding movies, but it also seems on track that they are starting to also be putting out pointless, metaphorical, non-plot cohesive movies like Dream Scenario, Beau Was Afraid, and Men, which made our bottom, which was actually the third worst movie we saw the year prior. But Dream Scenario is something that caught our attention, not only with Nicolas Cage, but with the concept of it, that he's just somehow appearing in people's dreams. And then they just butchered the ending. They don't give us an answer as to why. They don't give us a real resolution, and they're just cut to black in the middle of the movie and then just confuse you immediately by the ending. And you're just like, what is the point of this? Like, there should be substance in this film, and there's not. So it was better than everything else on this list. It doesn't even come close to the bottom 10, in at least in my opinion, but I really did just expect better out of this. All right, let's do it. The number one worst movie this year. Isaac and I are breaking our silence. Joyride. And let me start off by saying that the reason that we know for sure, absolute positively, that this is the worst movie that we've seen this year is because it is the only movie, not just this year, but in my lifetime, that I have ever walked out of. I paid for the ticket. I usually say, no matter how bad this is, I'm just going to sit through it because I paid the ticket. But it got to a certain point in the film where I'm just like, yeah, I cannot. I cannot with this damn shit anymore. And Isaac and I, we looked at each other and we're just like, yeah, time to go. And we got up and left. Isaac will have the benefit in his review of this because he actually, he threw himself on the bed of nails that is going back and watching the rest of this movie as it continues onward. So he's going to be more educated on it than I am. I don't ever want to see this shit again. For those of you wondering what happened to make us leave, they all dressed up as pop stars and tried to sneak onto a plane. And to prove that they were really pop stars, they started singing "Wet Ass Pussy," which we knew was going to be in there from the trailer, but what we did not expect was the entire 3-minute song to be performed by these talentless ladies who cannot sing. And we had given the song enough time for us to realize that they're doing the whole thing. And we're just like, yeah, we're done. And we left. This movie did not make either of us laugh once. Being that they blew all the good jokes in the trailers. Like the slide is off limit to Ching Chong's joke where the kid is racist and then the little girl punches him in the face. That was in the trailer that we've seen hundreds of times. The "it's not a bop it, it's my asshole" might have actually got me to laugh the first time I watched it, but then they put the trailer everywhere. It was in YouTube ads. It was in every R-rated movie, and the joke got old by the time that we actually saw the movie. So the jokes were not funny anymore. And that's where they put all the good jokes, was in the trailer. So all that was left was the stinkers that were designed for the actual movie. And Isaac and I have both seen many, many people giving this high scores. Oh, it's so raunchy, it's so funny. But the thing is about a raunchy comedy is that they make it raunchy, but they forget to make it a comedy. Like, there's like literally one of the first sexually inappropriate jokes that they make is that one of the girls wants to make a playground park, but like all the swings and slides and jungle gyms are penises and vaginas, and that's the joke. Everything in Joyride is just inappropriate and sexual. It's not funny in the slightest. And it's like it's almost like a PTSD kind of thing where if I see any of the actresses that were in this movie, if I see them pop up in the trailers or in another movie or something, I'll just be like, oh, it's them. So that's just a bad sign from the start. All right, that took a lot out of me. So these are the bottom 10 for me, the 10 worst movies this year. of 2023. Probably similar movies from Isaac when he does his bottom 10, but I'm sure he'll have plenty of different and things to say about each of them. I know he has a lot more to say about Joyride. I know he has a lot more to say about Exorcist Believer and Little Mermaid. And just to remind you that these are only ones that Isaac and I went and saw. The ones where we were just like, yeah, we know this is going to be absolute dog shit and we're not even going to enjoy it, so we're not going. So, The Marvels 2023, Wish, uh, whatever the fuck else came out this year that was dog shit. Yeah, we just didn't go to see those, so those don't even make the list. Those all go below the list. I don't know if it would go below Joyride, but it'll go below pretty much everything else because we just know from the get go that they're dog duty. All right. Anyways, guys, that'll sum up the list. Be sure to stick around for Isaac's bottom 10. Stick around because we have our very first podcast episode of 2024 coming out very soon. And we have Isaac and I have our very own Letterboxd accounts. So check us out at Letterboxd at Cinema Kellan and Regular Isaac. Until next time, guys, that's a wrap. Roll credits.